How's it going, everyone? It's Riley's Redzone, and welcome back to another edition of Weekly NFL Picks. We're already 4 weeks through the books. It's week 5, believe it or not. We're in October. It's a great month for sports all around, but the NFL is just starting to kick up a little bit. So to recap, before we jump into this week, on the season, my record is 35-29. I went 9-7 last week. Not the best, not the worst. Our guest picker, Carson, did put up the best guest pick performance so far this season. He went 11-5. Our previous two contestants were 8-8. So that was a huge step up in that department. But to take on the challenge this week is Nick. He has stepped up to the plate for this opportunity. We'll see how his picks go. And I'm just going to say, we have a number of varying opinions, so it's going to be, I think, a split week this week. It should be interesting. So let's jump right into talking about this week's slate of games. Last thing before we get started is, if you're new to the channel, I just pick who's going to win the game. I will mention spreads to maybe get an idea of who's favored in the matchup, but in the end, we just pick who wins, not who covers or anything as such. So starting with a NFC South matchup here. We got the Falcons and the Bucs. Two teams that are in similar kind of tiers to me when I'm looking at my rankings. The Bucs with a win over the Eagles, to me, was big time. They are a team that's built on flavor, Baker Mayfield swagger. I don't think their roster per se is even towards the top of the league, but they are just balling right now on a week to week. I mean, they dropped a game that I was shocked they did against the Broncos, but they looked pretty good, obviously, against the Eagles, who I have still ranked very highly. They looked really, really good, but the Falcons as well, I think this season has shown that with Kirk Cousins, you're vying for that potentially to win the division if it's easy enough, but otherwise a wild card spot. I think they've looked really consistent. The game changer for me here is the Falcons are at home, and I'm feeling a little bit of a bounce back. Per se, that the Bucs maybe struggle again this week. I just don't see them as a consistent great team. They're very good, though. I'm going to take the steadiness of Kirk Cousins and the Falcons at home, who is the favorite. Nick is going with the Bucs, so that is a split right there to start things off already on who we think wins the game. And then we get dicey here. The Jets and the Vikings. Pound for pound, the Vikings may have looked like the best team in the league. They're up there with the Chiefs over the first month. I don't have them at number 2. I have them at number 4 right now in my rankings, but they're in that top tier, as if you go by what they've looked at, they're Super Bowl contenders. But if you guys don't know, grew up, I'm familiar with these Vikings, and you have to think that at some point the wheels are going to fall off. That's just what we've been exposed to. It might not. I think this is where it may come to an end. The Jets somehow don't beat the Broncos last week. The final score was 10-9. We got to score more points than that, but their defense clearly still is doing enough to do that. But Rodgers got to get on page with his guys. I think going to London is the difference maker here. Not being at US Bank, the Jets also just being in a reset. I like the Jets in this matchup as the underdog to spoil the Vikings' trip overseas. Nick's going with the Vikes. Should be a good one for sure. I mean, obviously, as stated, the Vikings have looked amazing, but the Jets, I think, could get it done with Aaron Rodgers, of all people. So, Panthers and Bears, two teams on the, you think, lower spectrum, but the Bears get a win last week against the Rams. Caleb is starting to pick back up again. I mean, once again, we haven't maybe seen the generational prospect yet, but he's been solid. You can't overreact to any of that. I don't think their roster is great. I still have them in a mid-20s right now in my rankings. The Panthers have looked better with Andy Dalton, but I still don't think they're a great football team. Give me the Bears at home here for sure. Nick's going with the Panthers. I mean, with Andy Dalton, they are sneaky. They put up a lot of points against the Bengals even last week. And before that, they beat the Raiders. So with Andy Dalton, they have certainly a chance, but I'll take Chicago in that one. Browns, Commanders. This is probably maybe my boldest take of the week. I was too low on the Commanders, and I'll say that straight up. I thought that it was not necessarily a fluke. I thought Jaden Daniels would be legit, But he doesn't just look legit. He looks like him right now. They look like the equivalent of the Texans of last season. Now, I still think we got to pump the brakes a little, but I had them too low. I adjusted them up. They're legit. This is a team that I could see making the wild card. Even their division right now, they're leading. But long term, I certainly have some faith in them now. But this is my last withering hope for the Cleveland Browns. I think that this is where this could be a turning week. If over the last few games that we've watched, the Browns have put themselves in the close enough position that they have a chance to win the ball game in the fourth quarter. Specifically, that ball is in the hands of Deshaun Watson. They get a fourth down, and it ends up being the end of the game. And that's just not what you really want to see, obviously. You want them to win games. And so I feel like they've had a fair chance to do so, but they just can't close them out. This is the week I think that the Browns strike back. I think they get a victory here over Washington. I'm going to take them as an underdog. If they lose this week, I'm dropping them significantly. I'm certainly, if I'm the Browns, thinking about going a different direction at quarterback, likely considering a loss here. Amari Cooper's on the trade block, supposedly. I mean, that's a fair point to make with a potential rebuild. I like the Browns, though. Give me them. Nick has the Commanders, so he's going to go with probably the favorite there, and that makes sense. Dolphins Patriots is a absolute wash for me between two teams that I think are bottom two in the league right now. The Dolphins without Tua and the Patriots who don't have an offensive line. I mean, they have one, but it's not very good. I still am on people are starting to say get Drake May in there. He might get just destroyed back there. I like Drake May as a prospect, but you got to wait for the right time. As bad as it is for Jacoby, he can be competitive. And for that reason, I think they get a victory this week. I just don't know what's really going on with the quarterback spot until they get Tua back for the Dolphins. Nick is going to take the Dolphins here. Certainly an interesting one. I just like the Patriots at home in this situation to get a victory. Colts and Jaguars. This has a lot of elements to it. The Jaguars haven't gotten a win yet, which is crazy to me. They are underperforming expectations by a far sight. You got to look at Doug Peterson being on the hot seat. Trevor Lawrence hasn't taken that monumental step up. And the Colts are a team I'm not particularly high on, but they can win some games. I think Joe Flacco right now actually has been playing better. Like, they gave him the end of, because after Richardson got hurt, he looked pretty good still at the end of that last game. I almost like them better with Flacco right now than they do with Richardson. I still think that Richardson long term, you need to just kick the tires on him, give him a chance. But I'm really liking the odds actually with a Joe Flacco if he's in the lineup. But I'm not so sure there. This is like the Browns for the Jags, my last. I've got them still not even as a borderline bottom team. I have them just a notch ahead of that. I haven't given up on all hope, but this is a game that if you lose at home, division opponent, you're not looking great for Jacksonville, which is a crazy turn of events for sure. But overall, I'm going to go with the Jags here to get their first win. Nick's going with the Colts, so that is a difference there. If you look at actually every game up to this point, we have disagreed. But then things lighten up a little bit here. Ravens, Bengals. Yeah, the Ravens get a win over the Bills. They look great. They are a top 3 team to me. They proved it. The Bengals are looking better. I still just don't have full confidence in their defense. Also, their offense is also still just a little hesitant for me. I think we'll see a decently high-scoring game here, a 20 to 30 something type of matchup. Give me the Ravens though. That's where Nick goes as well. I just think that they're a more proven team here. I think that they're on their way back, and I'll take Baltimore. They're legit contenders here. A win for the Bengals would shake things up quite a bit, and that would be something to keep an eye on. I think Bills-Texans may be the hardest game of the week to predict because these are two serious contenders. I have them both in the top 7. They're right next to each other right now in my rankings. And for that reason, you think that formula-wise, I should go with the home team being the Texans. They get back in the win column this past week and after that loss to the Vikings. And the Bills take a big loss to the Ravens, but I still think the Bills have shown that they are legit as a contender with Josh Allen. Last week wasn't their strongest week. I like a bounce back from them. If you haven't learned already, I'm a huge bounce back guy. I think that things even out really significantly in the NFL. I think there's a little bit less streaky play than compared to other sports, just because you don't play as often and it's a reset every week, really. So as slight favorites on the road, I'm going to take the Bills. So is Nick here. This is probably going to be I would hope, the best game of the week on paper. It's certainly a chance to be, but we're both going to go with Buffalo there. Raiders, Broncos. What I think we've learned at this point is the Broncos have a darn good defense, and that is half of the ball. That's something that is significant and can get you victories. I still think this vanilla ice cream that is Bo Nix of he's okay as an upside. I just don't think his upside is super high. Can slowly get them wins as he develops into a decent player. I don't think he's ever going to be great as of what we're seeing right now, but give him time. I think that he'll be enough for them to get some wins against a team like the Raiders, who I don't know how to predict the Raiders. They win and lose games on a random basis to me. I mean, we're getting wins against the Ravens, and then maybe the Browns aren't that good, but still they get that, and then they lose to the Panthers. I mean, the Raiders and the Patriots are two teams I see very similarly, that they're kind of, with their coaches, they're culture guys. I think that Antonio Pierce was the right guy for the job. He's going to install just this rah-rah mentality that can get you some wins. I just don't know which games they're going to win, because they're going to pull off upsets, and I think they're going to drop some games. I'm going to take the Broncos at home. That's where Nick goes as well. I'd kind of be shocked at that point that the Broncos have gotten that many wins, but I think that their defense is playing strong enough that they can get it going. So give me Denver in that one. Cardinals, Niners, another division. We got a lot of divisional matchups this week. The Cardinals did not look great against the Commanders. They were absolutely stomped. The Niners were playing the Patriots, so we can't take that really for face value either. If this were in the desert, I might try to think something crazy here, but it's not. So give me the Niners at home. They're significant favorites. I think they should be. That's where Nick goes also. The Niners, I still have a top 5 team right now, just on that borderline. And so I think I'm not overly concerned with them. They're going to be in contention again. Give me the San Francisco in that game. The Giants and the Seahawks. The Giants are not in the basement for me anymore of complete tier rankings. They're in the bottom 5. But it's all going to depend on, really, I think, the health of their players. And I'm just going to confirm here if Malik Neighbors is eligible for this week, because he's going to be a long shot, because that just plays into where I was going anyways. But that's a significant loss for them. He's looked like a stud, and with that, the Seahawks dropped the game against the Lions, but they're just what I thought they'd be. I thought the Lions would win that game pretty convincingly. They did so. The Seahawks have a great roster. I don't know if Geno's the quarterback to get them all the way, but their team is built in a really strong way that their offense and their defense can be successful. And I think that overall they're going to be a certified outside wild card team that maybe could get a win. But against the Giants, it's safer here to go to Seahawks, although Drew Lock revenge game, if they were to play him. I think that this is a sneaky game. I would not be shocked to see New York pull this off, but I'll take Seattle, so does Nick here. Packers, Rams. These are two teams that I think are interesting, because the Rams lose last week to the Bears. Because the Bears are at home, I did pick the Bears, but the Bears not great. The Rams, without some of their top playmakers on offense, is certainly a different position. But when you have Matthew Stafford, you have Sean McVay. I've talked about it in previous weeks. Even their defense, roster-wise, isn't great to me, but coaching, they have everything they need. But at the same time, the Packers, I'm not very concerned. I think that we saw enough from that last week. Now, they started off awful. I mean, that was terrible against the Vikes. I mean, they're down 28-7.5, but they pull back. And Jordan Love showed flashes of himself, but you could still tell he was a little hobbled. And so I think that if you can just keep getting him more rest, he'll be in his natural form. I'm not very concerned about the Packers. I think I've actually learned more by them staying in the game and even seeing like, oh, Jordan Love not 100% is still a really good quarterback. So give me Green Bay. That's where Nick goes also in that game. That should be a fun one, but on the road, I like the Packers to kind of get back in the right track here. Cowboys, Steelers. How about this matchup? You know, the classics of old in the 70s age between these two teams, bringing it back. And I expect actually a very fun one here. The Cowboys get a meh win over the Giants. Like, it was okay. I think that the Cowboys this year are looking just like a wild card team, in my opinion. But I still think they're top 12 in the league. The Steelers, I thought, were a little bit kind of a fluky 3-0. They do this every year. Fields didn't look as good, but still decent against the Colts. Not great, though. I think it's coming down to earth a little bit. I still think Fields is who you go with at quarterback for the Steelers, but give me the Cowboys on the road, which is a bold strategy, but give me Dallas. Nick is going with the Steelers, which is a little shocking considering he is a Cowboys fan, or at least was. I don't know if he's changed his mind now at this point, or maybe he just doesn't have any faith in the team anymore. Because I'm going with Dallas in this game. I think that the Steel Curtain is real, but Dallas on the road, I think with a proven quarterback like Dak with experience, give me the Cowboys. And to close out the pick segment for this week, we got the Saints and the Chiefs. The Saints started off so hot, but have quickly cooled down. Meanwhile, the Chiefs, I have as the top of the league for a reason. I don't know why I've taken some stabs a few times to pick against them. I think they were okay guesses. The two that I've picked were games that ended up being really close, although most of the games the Chiefs have played have been one-possession ball games. That's interesting to see. But I feel good about the Saints. About the Chiefs against the Saints this week. I just don't have full confidence in New Orleans. I think they're kind of a flash in a pan type of thing, that they'll pull off some freaky, crazy wins that are 40-14, but I just don't think that they're going to be a consistent option. Now, if they get Devontae Adams, that's a whole nother subject. Whoever gets him going into next week or whenever they potentially trade him from the Raiders, that could be interesting. But for now, give me Kansas City. So that's the pick segment, but let's also close out the video with the Fantasy League here. And what's been going on? I lost for the first time. And it was due to Matthew having Tony Pollard, who scored that last 20 seconds left touchdown. The Titans, you're already up in the ball game. You go for it on 4th and goal and we give it to Tony Pollard. What are we doing? But congrats to them for getting a win. Also, congrats to Matthew himself for getting a win, and so that's how my team fell. And I also took a big loss of Rashee Rice being injured. Yeah, he's out. So we're going to need to fill in. The team has been balling out. I'm proud of my guys. I'm throwing in Zach Charbonnet this week in the flex spot. My other options are Zamir White's just not playing great. I can't start him. Could go Justice Hill, who went off last week, but I don't know about that consistency. I got Mike Williams for the Jets, and otherwise Jalen Naylor is cooled off for the Vikes. And tight end, I picked up Kate Otten this week to actually maybe try to get me some consistent points. I'm getting nothing, basically, from Mike Gesicki last week, who is my third tight end. I have Hawkinson and Theo Johnson, and so Hawkinson's hurt, and Theo Johnson is not going to be a starter right away for the Giants, but it is a dynasty league, so I can't get rid of him. So, hoping those adjustments lead to success. I'm currently just slightly favored against Carson. But let's start with a recap of last week, where the best manager was Zach, who scored 111, but he also lost that game in a narrow game against Carson, where Carson won 116-111. Nick was supposedly the worst manager, only scoring 73% of his possible points. Max is pouring it on in this league. He's undefeated. He scored the most points last week and in the biggest blowout, 152 points. And our lowest score was Cody with 95 points. So when we go to league, and remember, there is a for sure punishment, probably reward on the line. You don't want to be last in this league. You don't want to be in the basement. And now the standings have really shook up, as when we go to the matchups, we got a 3-1 myself versus the 2-2 Carson. 2-2 Zach versus 1-3 Cody. 2-2 Matthew versus 2-2 Braden. 1-3 Danny versus 3-1 Charlie. 4-0 Max versus 2-2 Andrew. That game is only a 51-49 projection though, so this could get interesting as bye weeks begin to shape things up as well. Nick versus Alex in a showdown. Those two are probably going to be talking trash all week, both at 1-3. As you're looking at the loser of that game might be in the driver's seat at 1-4 for that bottom spot. I mean, that is interesting because you are not wanting to be at the bottom. I think I've still scored the total most points in the league. But you can see the standings here on both sides. And after last week, everyone started with a win. We have a lot of 1-3s, a lot of 2-2s, and then 2-3-1s, and Max at the top with a 4-0. We'll see if somebody can take him down. But for now, that's the weekly NFL picks. We're hoping that this week is a success. I'm rolling the dice quite a bit, in my opinion, taking some games that I usually would not if I stuck to formula. But you got to take some chances if you want to win big. So with that being said, thanks so much for watching this week's edition of the weekly NFL picks. We'll be back next time with another one.